Hello everyone, welcome to SVLOGLK. Today we have a very special guest. Do you all know what? When I came to know about him, I was so impressed and I asked ChatGPT who has won the most IGCSE Cambridge Learners Award in history. It made me a big surprise. ChatGPT answered me with his name, Sevin Fernando, and he's a Sri Lankan. Sevin is a student at Imperial College, London, studying mathematics and computer science, and he's already achieved some incredible milestones. From being ranked top in the world for IGCSE mathematics with 4 other national awards to achieve gold in the British Physics Olympiad, published books, building electric cars, and even inventing technology to help blind computer users. His journey is nothing short of inspiring. In this interview, we will dive into his academic journey, his projects, his leadership, and get to know all about who he is outside of these amazing achievements. So let's get started. Hi Sevin, I'm Khalida. You were ranked top in world for mathematics IGCSE and was top in Saudi Arabia for physics, computer science, accounting, and the best across 8 subjects. How did that recognition change your perspective on learning?
I guess that time was an interesting time. We just came out of COVID. My school previously shut down, and at that point I just joined a new school with no extracurriculars, those kinds of things. And so because of that, I was basically in a position where all I could do was study. And so I wouldn't say it was really a change in my perspective on learning. It was more so just me continuing, I guess, the same old habits that I used to have, of just kind of like pushing through, sort of handling the pressure the best I could, which is directly through it, through studying. That was my way of doing that, and finally that ended well with good results. I'd say one of the most beneficial things that I did, that I learned there, was the idea of kind of always staying ahead. So learning things before the school taught me, basically. And I guess when I did that, sort of taking full ownership and control of my own study schedule, then I think that really did help, and I think that's sort of a big reason why I got the results that I did, and those especially through classes, which that's it.
You went to study in the UK at a boarding school. What inspired that, and what was your approach to succeeding there?
That primarily was a family decision. Usually I don't take like these sort of big changes. I'm quite conservative about these things. But suddenly we looked at sort of my situation, especially with the pressure of university applications coming up, and how do I get a good application for that. And so we realized that the place that I was in had no extracurriculars, just my academics. And that's only a small part of an application, right? So we went to this new school which offered so much more. Duke of Edinburgh, academic things like Olympiads even, so that vein as well. But also, I participated in plays, I was lead in a musical, I sang on a stage and stuff like that. I was involved with sort of building an electric car, again, Olympiads. I had the chance to do my own kind of academic research. And so, yeah, that's how I that was a reason. Obviously there were some, struggles when you go to a new place, away from your parents for the first time. And so I had that to deal with as well, that's true. But the way that I did that is, again, the same way that I handled my time in my IGCSEs and my time before that, which was going directly through it in terms of pressure, right? So I got involved in as many extracurriculars as possible, dove into my studies just as much as I could do, and eventually things became easy and comfortable and peaceful.
Yes, you said that it's your parents' decision, and your strongness made them to take this decision. Being a single son, sending you away from home is with a heavy hearted only. Mm-hmm. But you are bringing them colors and colors, Sevin. You have achieved 5 A stars at A levels. How did you prepare for such high performance, especially with extracurricular activities that you were doing?
Actually, to be honest with you, when I was preparing for my A levels, I don't think I studied so well initially. Again, because I was quite distracted and sort of doing all these other things. So I spend my time getting involved in other things, so things like Research, like I said, that took a long time. And beyond research, it was sort of my leadership experience with, prefectship, all those things. So overall, I was busy, right? I guess the way that I handled that eventually, and towards those 5A stars, was again just pushing through. I realized that if I spend my time normally, so the usual kind of normal amount of hours a day that I'd spend working, then I wouldn't be able to achieve my goals. And so what I had to do was study extra, really push myself. I didn't have so much time to rest or free time, those kinds of things. It was always spent doing something, whether it was studies or extracurriculars. But that worked for me. I think there were times where I was, I'd say, more peaceful and did it more properly, which were times when I planned. That's what my father always says, to plan, to plan your schedule. And when I did listen to him, it definitely worked. Sometimes I didn't, that's my bad, but what can you do?
So nice. Can you share your experience participating in Olympiad and what did you learn beyond academics?
I think the traditional route to Olympiads is you're supposed to really get involved and really study. I mean, some people study for 2 years before they begin their Olympiads and they're fully prepared with all the knowledge of whatever physics is for our level, right? I couldn't do that. I didn't even know what really an Olympiad was until I came to that school, when the same year that I had to do it. And so in that sense, I didn't have much preparation time. Basically, I had a month between when I realized I could do it and when I actually did it. And so in that time, I mean, I obviously worked intensely. I got to learn about different things, sort of more conceptual ways, logical ways to think through problems, as opposed to memorizing the answers like you do in A-levels and IGCSEs. So that kind of thing is really fun to learn how to think, basically, and get to these really difficult conceptual problems, especially in physics. But apart from that, I think again it was more so just using my existing knowledge and sort of whatever processing abilities, intelligence capabilities that I had towards the Olympiads.
Being occupied yourself with so many things, you got to write some books. Could you please tell about your book, Ethic in Quantum Computing? What drove you to publish at such a young age?
So the first book that I published, I was about 12, 13, something like that. And it was a kind of a sci-fi storybook, to do with aliens and sort of mind control and, what happens if the Earth were to sort of collapse, civilization were to collapse, what would become of it, what would grow out of it. So kind of dystopian civilizations, good people too, nomads, all those things. That was really fun. Actually at that time when I was 12, I did it for university reasons, kind of just a indicator of how I was back then. And then eventually, Ethics of Quantum Computing was sort of a research paper that I did when I was in A-levels, and then eventually I published it as a book. So the fundamental kind of idea of the book is we talked about cybersecurity and economic impacts of what would happen if there was an ideal quantum computer. So, everything that sort of scientists say is theoretically possible, what if that were to happen today? What are the problems that we'd face? So things like, security issues. There's a threat called harvest now, decrypt later attacks, where basically data is collected now, and obviously we can decrypt it, it's safe. But eventually, if quantum computers were to come, then that data would be under threat, basically. How do we prepare for that? Actually, you can't prepare for that. Best way is sort of early implementation of these. So things that I came up with myself to do with the problems of quantum computers, and I tried to come up with potential solutions. Most of them are not actually possible because people have different interests. Different governments don't necessarily work together properly, right? In these cases, but it's really fun, and it was a part of my application towards university because I wanted to study computer science, maths and computer science. So
your answers are keep admiring me, Sevin, believe me. Okay, tell us about the Green Power Challenge. What was it like building and racing a car from scratch?
I was part of the Green Power team actually, and that team consisted of most of my friends, so that's how I sort of got into it. At the beginning, I guess I didn't really have so much of a natural passion for cars. They did, for sure. And so it began by just me wanting to sort of help them, that kind of thing. So I was involved with social media and marketing and writing newsletters, newspapers, trying to get sponsors for them. We actually got a bank sponsorship. I was the driver, end of the day, because I'm smaller than most people, I guess, than them at least. So I was the driver strategically, and that was the kind of experience. I guess I don't think I got an eventual passion for cars out of it as well. I didn't move into that field for that's one reason, but I did really enjoy it. It was a cool experience, and eventually we actually came 15th in the UK for our category. So
That's so interesting. It seems that getting into a top university was a strong motivator for you. How did stay focused on that goal, and what did it feel like to finally get into the second ranked university in the world?
I mean, like I said, it was always a desire of mine. I think that's part of our culture as well. That's one thing. Also, my parents, I knew my parents wanted it, but they never pushed me. That's one thing. They used to tell me even if I failed all of my exams, it's fine, no worries, just be happy. And that was always there for me. But I also knew that they would enjoy it, and I really liked the idea of giving them that kind of peace and that proudness, and almost like they're on a cloud, it's easy for them, that kind of thing. That was really nice. Obviously my own goals eventually are ambitious. At that time were ambitious, and I didn't want to be in a position where it's difficult to achieve those goals. So I have to keep achieving things so that I can get to a position where it's easy to sort of get to the next stage, right? And then keep going like that. And so that was, I guess, my motivation. How to stay focused on that is, I don't know, it's difficult. I mean, life is life, it's sometimes you feel really great, and sometimes you feel like you can conquer the world. Sometimes you don't. That's just how it is. There are ways to fix those things or help those things. For example, a schedule, being disciplined, so that even if you don't feel so good, you can still study. But even that sometimes goes out of the window. And at a certain point, it's just, you have to take each moment, each day as, its own day. You have to make good decisions during that day and make good choices. Take rest when you need to, that kind of thing. But it's hard to explain my story because, there's very small moments, I guess, that make up the story. So
Each and every success yours keep inspiring us, and your parents are lucky to have you and you're lucky to have them. So it's a big thanks to God. Now you are at university. You're currently working on a Braille-based device for blind users. What inspired this project and what challenge have you faced?
So we joined the competition. Basically, I didn't have an idea for creating a Braille-based device initially, but there was a competition at my university where basically you have to create a project that somehow helps society in some way, and it had to be financially viable, so maybe investors would invest into it, and obviously it had to be beneficial, it had to be practical, realistic. That's how we began. Eventually that competition, other winners previously have sometimes gotten £3 million, £4 million in investment after they finished the initial round and after they won. So it's a really interesting competition basically. Eventually we were on a group chat. We were just brainstorming ideas for about a week, intensely, and we came up with the idea of basically helping blind users use computers, because we noticed that there's a significant kind of gap in the market, in the sense that right now the existing technologies are screen readers, so it's sort of like a voice that tells you what elements are on the screen in order, but that can be slow. Imagine how long it would take to get to the last element, right? And it's just hearing the same guy just speak like that. It's just annoying, Otherwise, there are existing Braille pads, which is sort of what we made, but those Braille pads can be very expensive. I mean, generally speaking, £6,000, right? At the cheapest, even £800, and that's completely inaccessible, basically, for the average person, right? And software is also a little bit basic, basically. So we decided to fix that whole situation, all the problems that we could find. I'm in charge of software, so basically coming up with new ideas, that kind of thing. definitely a big challenge as far as, for me at least, as far as, you know, getting that software, sort of new challenges that I've never faced before, basically. And for the others, the challenges was obviously reducing the price, minimizing it. And so they had to come up with new kind of mechanical ways of each pin even being raised up. That's the main driver of costs. So we had to just invent stuff the whole time. We were basically inventors for the past 2 months for the finals. Come up with new solutions like every day almost. It's been really difficult in that sense to be that creative, and also learn the skills required to get to that point. But you know, eventually, if we do win, we'll have a device that will like revolutionize the industry of blind people and computers. It seems investable as well. We've made it like a basic business plan, and it seems quite lucrative. Like potentially we could sell it to another company. We can potentially get patents too, especially, I mean, we're close to, but we're not at that stage yet, but we can soon probably. And if we do that, it should be successful, you know, which is nice too.
It's brilliant, and we all pray and wishing you all the best to come through with this. As the president of IBM-Z at Imperial, you were leading mainframe education. What led you to this opportunity?
Actually, when I first joined Imperial, I was looking for things to do, you know, as you do. And the first thing that I found was like a hackathon, basically, so a competition where you code. And it was hosted by IBM, is the situation. So I participated in that competition. I didn't win, to be fair. I did okay. But eventually I used that sort of like, we were in a group chat and they said that the previous ambassador left. And so I just decided like, okay, you know what, let's just try this. Let's see how it goes. And then the interview went really well. And so eventually I ended up being sort of the president of the IBM-Z chapter, which is basically IBM's mainframe kind of section. And I'm basically in charge of, you know, sort of spreading the word about what IBM-Z is, teaching people about it. Also just, this is sort of a thing that I came up with, but more generally connecting Imperial students to IBM. So their quantum computing space, like sort of things that are more, I guess, people are more traditionally interested in. And you know, it's been really good. Like I've gotten a few people to help me sort of work under me, 2 others. And we've gotten about 20 members so far who are just, you know, active and genuinely interested, which is decent. And we have much more plans for this year because this is the 2nd year doing it. So
You are such an example to the society and the young generation that losing is not just that you can come out of it. I have one more question for you. Among your projects, which one you are most proud of and why?
Like sort of definitions, it depends on how you define proud kind of thing. So on the one hand, I'm really proud of the Braille-based device because that's the first device I think that has the most impact, or like even just in general it has some level of impact, and that impact potentially could be quite significant. So that's one thing. I'm really proud of also, I mean, as far as like achievements go in general, I'm proud of my IGCSE results as well. Partially because, I mean, they were good and they set like a record and all those things, but also because I think the way that I dealt with that situation that I was in, you know, I mean, out of COVID, new school, new people, no extracurriculars, like no, I guess, momentum is the way to put it. The way that I dealt with that and eventually got those results, I think was an example of me being quite brave, you know, like good personality development basically. And I'm really happy that I acted the way that I did in those moments because it's given me such a good platform now, even to make this Braille-based device. Wouldn't be here if I didn't do that initially, right? So I think that too, I'm pretty proud of that as well.
You have held leadership roles like senior prefect, house captain, hackathon organizer. What's your leadership style and what made you to take these leadership roles?
To be honest, it's because like when I began at Queen's, I was, I think, objectively a bad leader, and I was shy and all those things, like, you know, just not a good person to be a leader basically. But I was given the responsibility because I was doing well academically and in general, and so they gave me the position basically. And so at that point I took it because I really wanted to learn how to be a good leader, because, you know, when you have sort of things that you want to improve upon by yourself, then, you know, you should try, right? Initially, I don't think I was the best leader. especially when I was joining Queen's College. But I was given the position because I was doing well quite academically and among other things. And so I took the position because I guess initially I realized that was a part of me that I wanted to improve upon. I realized that was also important for my future. And so, I took it on, right? And the first competition that we had actually was kind of a musical singing competition where I was in charge of basically about 100 people. And we had to collect all of them and somehow get them to sing a song loudly and nicely and with actions, just for a few minutes. But that proved to be quite a challenge, as you can expect, especially because some of the kids were quite small. And first competition, I really worked very hard. I mean, I think there was one night where I didn't even sleep the night before because I was trying to come up with different sort of strategies and positions for those people. And eventually we did the competition, and I think it was quite okay. It was fairly decent, the performance. But I realized, I guess, after that, it didn't go as well as it could have gone. I felt that something was lacking. And overall, I felt like there was a lack of passion among people in general too. And so that's when I sort of changed my leadership style, which was, I guess, being able to accept help. So for the next competition, I set out, I kind of delegated my work initially to people who I knew would be good at it and people who had certain skills at certain sort of levels that were better than what I had at that time. So, for example, dance captains or maybe a sports captain, I would delegate the leadership to for that section, that kind of thing. And so what eventually came out of that was people being passionate because I guess they got to take ownership for the competition as well. Almost like my job as leader was to try to make them leaders in their own right, that type of thing. And so eventually we did much better in those competitions. The sports competition we came first actually by quite a significant margin. And I just felt that I think everyone was happier too. And so, yeah, I guess my leadership side is trying not to take the spotlight. I think I generally have a strategy that I want to enforce, but I let people figure out how best they can do it, is what I would say.
That's great. Of course, we will have a future leader who will bring everybody along with him, because leaders never walk alone. They always walk along with their team. Thank you for this inspirational words. How do you see technology contributing to solving global issues?
If you go to the past, for example, you see that technology has improved things like medical health, things like improvements in agriculture, like the Haber process, or even improvements in medical technology like penicillin, antibiotics, that kind of thing. They've obviously, I'd say they've obviously improved human society by giving people, better health. Eventually, as these things become cheaper and more accessible, we're able to, I guess, spread those benefits towards other countries, other nations who are maybe lacking at the moment. And in that sense, technology has, I guess, the potential at least, to alleviate things like poverty and inequality, those kinds of things. And so in that sense, it's very good. I think obviously technology is a powerful tool, so it has two edges, some obvious benefits like that. I think one interesting thing that with technology that is, I guess, not been a problem really in the past is the notion of technologies that are almost too powerful to some extent. And in the case, I think, to some extent, of AI, quantum computers, as I mentioned, have the potential to be quite bad, although we have fair solutions for that. And even to some extent, to a lesser extent, social media and the impact on individuals as far as mental health goes, and distraction and those kinds of things. And best you can do, I guess, wish people luck on that. But that's, I'd say, the most that I can say about technology. Yeah.
Sevin, now we'd love to hear about your fun and personality side of you. What's fun fact about you?
A fun fact? I mean, it's not that fun. It's kind of common actually. But fun fact about me is that I like lots of different types of music. And so, I guess my main method of rest, if I'm not doing something, is to, just listen to some type of music, and it varies from day to day. Either country or basic, kind of very popular pop, those One Direction, that type of thing. or like rock music, or back in the day, or country music, or especially these days Bollywood film music. I'd say that's something fun about me.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Okay, I don't know whether I can ask this question because you are fully occupied with so many things. Did you get time to do some hobbies? If yes, what it is?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, to some extent I have. I think one thing is that I like the guitar quite a lot, and singing, and so, you know, I do tend to practice, I guess, that kind of thing, and I just enjoy that as sort of my free time. Apart from the guitar, I've recently taken up the flute. It was very like based kind of off the whim type decision. I woke up one day at the middle of the night and I realized that I kind of wanted something to do that was, you know, not studies and not academic, and so I just went to Amazon and ordered a flute in the middle of the night at midnight, and I collected it the next day and I started learning. Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing, I make those decisions sometimes. Hobbies that are sort of related to what I do, so like coding, for example, or coming up with like certain projects, I do it partially for fun. It depends on the project, obviously, but that kind of thing. And yeah, like reading especially these days, I like to read a lot. And yeah, like a book per day sometimes, which is really fun. So
Interesting. If you aren't studying math and computer science, what would you be doing instead?
Most honestly, I probably would study physics. It may seem similar, but in reality, like, it can be very different, especially because the part of physics that I'm interested in is like the fundamental stuff. So kind of asking like, what is the universe in its most fundamental sense? You know, how small can we go? These kinds of questions. I think it's really interesting, and I used to be in a physics society back at school, and I had like lots of moments where I was really, really passionate about that kind of thing. And I used to think about it, and it used to inspire me to some extent, like almost in the same sense, like the kind of passion that you have as when you're a kid, that like pure sort of precious passion. I had those moments as well with physics. If it wasn't that, because I know that's quite similar, I had a phase where I liked psychology and like philosophy quite a lot, so like analytical psychology, and I really enjoyed that as well. Like 20th century kind of psychology was really fun. So yeah.
Interesting. We expect this from you, maybe whenever you get time. Keep inspiring us also with these kind of things. After all, and having this conversation, I really wanted to ask you a question. How do you relax after such a busy schedule?
Yeah. So generally speaking, if I'm away from home, what I do is, you know, listen to some music, or watch something quickly, or play the guitar, or, you know, those basic things, or maybe hang out with my friends if they're available. If I'm in Saudi with my parents, usually like at night, me and my father watch a movie. Like we put the bed sheet on the floor and then we watch something, and then he goes to sleep in the middle of it, that kind of thing.
Of course, it's amazing to have a family time after you are having your schedule busy. Let's talk about your future and inspiration. What are your career aspirations in academy, in entrepreneurship, or industry?
I'd say that's something that I'm still figuring out. Obviously, I'm at the age where, you know, you look towards internships and sort of different job experiences, and you get to explore different things, and then you pick a specialization in a field after a few years. One thing that really interested me was when I came for my Imperial interview, the professor that interviewed me, the interview kind of became like a conversation, like a fun conversation about his life, about my life, about our interests. And his journey was, you know, he's kind of deep into academia and deep into research. And then from the knowledge that he gained, the specialized knowledge that he gained, he was able to create a business. And that sort of business he could only create with the specialized knowledge that he had, right? It's sort of inaccessible otherwise. And so that idea is really interesting to me. So kind of like learning as much as I can, and then from that I have as many intellectual resources as possible towards coming up with different actual like interesting ideas that would help people, right? Especially because lots of unique ideas have already been taken up, like the big things.
Yes.
And so what's left is kind of like improvements and optimizations, basically. That requires knowledge, right? So I think what I'll probably do is maybe go into academia for some time, definitely do my master's, maybe a PhD. At the same time, I'll do some normal work and hopefully like at an interesting place that challenges me to create new ideas. And eventually I think I'll start a business too, so, or a few.
Of course, having multiple aspirations, we are not going to lose anything. There is no full stop for learning and success, and it is not going to let you go. Who inspires you the most in technology or science, and why?
I've never, I guess, thought that way. Like as far as role models go, in terms of like career and all those things, most like my father, I would say. I model myself after him, if anything. In terms of people within technology, not really, you know. Again, like my professor at my interview, his career path made sense, and so in that sense, you know, it's at least inspiring. But I don't think I have any strong inspirations.
Having an inspiration from one of your father or mother is a great start, Sevin, and we are so proud of you. I have one last question for you. You have studied in both Saudi Arabia and the UK. How has that international experience shaped you as a student and a person?
It's hard to say for me because that's all that I know, and so I can't really think of the other perspective, which is not having that. It's hard for me to sort of think of that. But you know, I think it's been good overall. I've been to different places. So I've been to the UK, like I've said. I've been to different places within Saudi Arabia as well. So international schools, which are more similar to UK actually, and schools that are dominated by, you know, like sort of traditional Saudi curriculums, that kind of thing. And if anything, maybe it's taught me to adapt to different places, to be able to speak to different sorts of people, and empathize with them, and sort of get to, you know, empathize with them at their level, that kind of thing. It's led to really interesting conversations too, obviously. In the UK, you have like a much more open culture, right? Compared to some place that's more conservative, like Saudi, for example. You know, in that sense, I've had really interesting conversations too about religion, for example. Debates, even back when I was in Saudi schools, I used to get into lots of debates. Not by my choice, that they came to me, that kind of thing. Because I was like unique as, you know, being non-Muslim. In that sense, it's been nice. Overall, it's just been nice. But again, it's like, what can you say? I can't think of other, I guess, perspectives.
Okay, that's great to hear. If you could advise students who want to follow a similar path, what should you say?
In my experience, what I've noticed is that it's mostly been about like my ambition pulling me forwards, you know? And to some extent, it feels like my ambition doesn't belong to me. It feels like something that is kind of sort of been given to me, or is like a external rope that's pulling me to some extent. And so if you have that, then really it's just a matter of discipline and sort of controlling yourself and making sure that whatever's in your mind sort of becomes reality, that kind of thing. And yeah, again, the way you do that is, like I said, you take each day at a time, right? Also, it's important to notice that in life there are some things that are like precious, that you should preserve as much as the best ability as you can, like defend as though like you're kind of like a soldier almost, right? So to me, that my ambition was something that was very precious, and I felt like when I was younger, especially, I used to like pray, like, can I keep this? Can I keep this?
Okay.
Because I really liked it, and I found that it was part of my identity, right? You know, take care of your precious things. Otherwise, you know, work hard and be disciplined. Also, I think be a good person is important. If I wasn't good, or if I didn't do like good, kind acts, I feel like I would be very lost. I don't know. It seems maybe the most important thing. Maybe I think. So you should do that as well. All those things.
I'm keep saying that you're such an inspiration, such an example, and I really couldn't take my eye and ear off from you. But we have to conclude this. Thank you so much, Sevin, for your time. Keep inspiring us with your achievements, and we wish you the best journey ahead. Thank you so much for your time once again.
Thank you for having me.
If today is Sevin, tomorrow is you. If you would like to share your inspirational story with us, please contact